In the APA Dictionary of Psychology, temper is defined as a display of irritation or anger, a tendency to be quick to anger. You can also see the phrase temper tantrum. And then, interesting enough, the second line of its definition is a personality characteristic, disposition, or mood. So in the world of psychology, we can find this really fascinating that a lot of our emotional impulses, how we react to our emotional sensations and feelings, can become personality traits. So someone who has a temper, which is the flare up of anger, is then sort of defined characteristically as someone who has a temper, their inability to manage their anger. Now, it becomes really easy when we look at our personality traits to throw our hands up and say, well, that's just who I am, and not claim responsibility for the fact that we can adjust those behaviors at any point. It's really quite interesting when we look at our personality traits that we can grow standard deviation in them. It certainly takes practice. These things don't just happen. Now, I worked with a number of clients in which anger was a very difficult emotion for them, and they did notice they were quick to anger. It was a flash in the pan experience, and then their behavior was really abrupt, aggressive, abrasive, and it was interfering with the quality of conversations and relationships that they were having. Now, every single person that I've actually worked with on this particular personality trait and emotional management skills first had to become aware of what their triggers were, and then had to actively practice what would be a viable and impactful strategy for them to use to prevent the disruptive behavior. And each one of them came up with something different. And this is why emotional training or emotional intelligence training or leadership excellence through emotional intelligence is not a step 1, step 2, step 3 traditional training program. So oftentimes I will engage with individuals or organizations, and their question is, well, what's the first step in your process? Unless we are launching or deploying a program for a particular outcome for everyone, there isn't a, well, first we work on this skill and then we work on this skill and then we work on this skill. There is always an approach that engages in self-discovery with coaching towards what works for you to achieve the outcome you're trying to achieve. So the clients that I work with, some of them chose to practice visualization of an off switch, because how they not just interpreted, but experienced their temper was that it was like an on switch. And so visualization in practice of an off switch gave them the agency that when the on switch went on, feeling out of their control, they had control of the off switch and they could immediately turn it off. And that calmed their temper, calmed their anger enough to give them time between that trigger and default to have a more thoughtful, conscious response, to be able to really think about how they wanted to articulate their anger, but also first determine, am I actually anger or am I simply in a default reaction?